Blood on his hands, a name on his lips. That's how Jack Malone rode into Dry Creek on a Tuesday that tasted like copper and regret. 6 years he'd been hunting. 6 years since the Brennan gang tore through his life like a wildfire through autumn wheat, leaving nothing but ash and memory. He'd tracked them across 3 territories, put 5 of them in the ground, watched their eyes go cold under western skies that didn't care about justice or vengeance or the fine line between them. But there was one left, Sarah Brennan, sister to the man who'd killed Jack's wife. His horse kicked up dust devils on Main Street, and somewhere a dog went quiet. Dry Creek was the kind of town that knew trouble when it saw it, and Jack Malone wore trouble like a second skin, in the set of his jaw, the worn grip of the Colt at his hip, the 1,000-yard stare of a man who'd forgotten what peace looked like. He found her behind the general store, hanging laundry in the gunmetal light of an afternoon thunderhead rolling in from the east. White sheets snapped in the wind like surrender flags. She didn't run when she saw him, didn't reach for a weapon, just stood there, clothespin in hand, watching him with eyes the color of rain. "Been expecting you," she said. Her voice carried the dust of the trail, the weight of knowing. "Figured you'd come eventually." Jack's hand hovered near his pistol. 6 years of rage crystallized into this moment. This woman in a simple dress, hair pulled back, looking nothing like the outlaw he'd imagined. Looking, God help him, tired. Looking like someone who'd been running just as long as he'd been chasing. "Your brother killed my wife." His voice cracked like dry leather. "Shot her down in front of our home. She was hanging laundry, just like you." Thunder rolled across the prairie, low and hungry. "I know." Sarah let the clothespin fall. "I know what Thomas did. I know what they all did." "Then you know why I'm here." She met his eyes, didn't flinch, didn't beg. "To finish it, to bury the last Brennan and maybe sleep at night." Lightning split the sky, turning everything white for a heartbeat. In that flash, Jack saw his wife's face, saw the morning she died, saw every mile he'd ridden, every man he'd killed, every piece of himself he'd left scattered across the west like spent shells. His hand closed around the grip of his Colt. "Do it," Sarah said quietly. "I'm tired of running, Jack Malone. I'm tired of carrying their sins." And that's when his hand stopped. Because she'd used his name. Because she wasn't begging. Because in her eyes, he saw something he recognized. The same exhaustion that stared back at him from every whiskey glass, every hotel mirror, every river he'd knelt beside trying to wash blood from his hands. "You weren't there," he said. Not a question, a realization. "I was 16 when they rode out that day. Thomas told me to stay behind, said they were just going to rob a bank." Her voice trembled. "I didn't know. When they came back, when I saw the blood, heard them laughing about—" She stopped, started again. "I ran that night, been running ever since. From them, from you, from what they made me part of." Rain began to fall. Fat drops that turned dust to mud, washed the world in gray. Jack's hand remained on his pistol, but his finger stayed outside the trigger guard. An old habit. His father's voice. "Never put your finger on the trigger unless you mean to kill." Did he mean to kill her? "You're a Brennan," he said. But the words had lost their edge. "And you're a killer." She stepped closer, close enough he could see tears mixing with rain on her cheeks. "How many men you put down, Jack? 5? 10? When does it end? When do you get to stop?" "When they're all dead. Then kill me." She spread her arms wide, crucified by rain. "Pull that trigger. Add me to the count. Maybe that'll fill the hole inside you. Maybe that'll bring her back." But they both knew it wouldn't. Jack Malone had never been a man who cried. Even when they lowered his wife into the ground, even through the long nights and longer days that followed, he'd kept it locked inside, converted grief to fury, tears to ammunition. But standing in that rain, looking at Sarah Brennan's outstretched arms, something inside him broke open like a breached dam. He drew his pistol. Sarah closed her eyes, and Jack Malone threw his gun in the mud. "I can't." The words tore from him, raw and bleeding. "God help me, I can't." He fell to his knees in the rain, 6 years of weight finally too much to carry. Somewhere above them, thunder spoke in a language older than revenge, older than hate. Sarah stood frozen, arms still wide, as if she'd expected the bullet and didn't know what to do with mercy. "Why?" she whispered. "Because you're right." Jack looked up at her, rain streaming down his face like the tears he'd never shed. "Killing you won't bring her back, won't make me sleep, won't make me anything but what I've already become." Sarah slowly lowered her arms. Then, and Jack would remember this for the rest of his days, she knelt in the mud beside him, close enough that their shoulders touched. Two people drowning in the same rain, carrying the same weight of sins they didn't commit. "I dream about her," Sarah said. "Your wife. Thomas described her. In my dreams, I try to warn her, try to make him stop. But I'm always too late, always too small, always just gone. Her name was Emma. Emma." Sarah repeated it like a prayer. "I'm sorry, Jack. I know it doesn't change anything, but I'm sorry." They knelt there as the storm rolled through, washing the dust from the street, from the sheets still hanging behind them, from the blood that stained both their souls. When the rain softened to mist, Jack spoke again. "I don't know how to stop." His voice was barely a whisper. "Don't know how to be anything but this." "Me neither." Sarah looked down at her hands, weathered beyond her years. "Been working at the general store, trying to build something that isn't about running, trying to be someone Emma wouldn't have died hating." The name hung between them, a bridge across a canyon of pain. Jack picked up his pistol, mud dripping from the barrel. For a moment, Sarah tensed, but he just cleaned it slowly with the edge of his coat, then slid it back into his holster. When he stood, he offered her his hand. She took it. "There's a ranch 2 days north," Jack said. "Widow named Mrs. Crawford needs help. Can't pay much, but it's honest work. Horses, cattle, mending fences." He paused. "I was heading there before I came here. Before I decided to choose revenge over everything else." "You're giving up the hunt?" "I'm choosing to live instead of haunt." He looked at her, really looked at her. Not as a Brennan, not as the last name on his list, but as a woman who'd been running just as hard, hurting just as deep. "Come with me. Help me figure out how to be something other than angry." Sarah studied his face, searching for the trap, the trick, found only exhaustion and a desperate kind of hope that mirrored her own. "I don't forgive easy," she said. "I don't forget easy." Might never work. "Probably won't." Jack managed something that wasn't quite a smile. "But maybe trying beats killing. Maybe living beats dying. Maybe two broken people can lean against each other long enough to learn how to stand." She looked back at the general store, at the sheets still hanging in the mist, at 6 years of running that led to this muddy street in a town called Dry Creek. Then she looked at Jack Malone, the man who'd hunted her across half the West, the man who'd thrown his gun away instead of pulling the trigger. "All right," she said. "All right." They rode out at dawn, two ghosts leaving the past behind them like shadows at sunrise. Dry Creek woke to find them gone, the hunter and the hunted, the killer who couldn't kill, the sister who carried her brother's sins. Behind them, dust settled on empty streets. Ahead, somewhere in the vast and unforgiving West, Mrs. Crawford's ranch waited with work that might save them or destroy them or simply give them something to do besides hate. In Jack's saddlebag, his pistol rode quiet. In Sarah's heart, Emma's name rested like a promise. And between them, in the space where vengeance should have been, something else grew. Fragile as new grass, stubborn as hope, uncertain as redemption, but reaching for it anyway, 1 mile at a time under skies that had seen worse things than two wounded souls trying to heal. Behind them, thunder rolled across the prairie like applause or warning. Ahead, the sun broke through the clouds. And somewhere between the storm and the light, Jack Malone and Sarah Brennan rode toward whatever came next. Not forgiven, not forgotten, but trying. In the West, sometimes trying is enough. Thanks for staying to the end of this Western tale of truth, redemption, and the hard choices that define us. Where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more cinematic stories from the frontier of the human heart.